Hi everyone, welcome to Design the Diaspora. So this is a V&A Dundee series developed in partnership with We Are Here Scotland and New Architecture Writers, exploring the work of contemporary designers and creatives from diasporic communities across Scotland. For those who don't know me, my name is Krish Nathaniel. I'm a spatial practitioner, writer and researcher, currently focused on land rights and the rights of the child. I'm the host for today's chat. Today we're joined by Rae-Yen Song. And Rae-Yen, for people who are perhaps newly coming to her work, is an artist based in Scotland. I think she's just about to join me now via video.
So yeah, I am a visual artist based in Glasgow. I was born in Edinburgh, and I guess my work is expansively through drawing, sculpture, installation, costume, video, sound, performance, family collaboration as well. And any other medium that becomes appropriate. And through this, my practice is a long-term exercise in self-mythology and a survival tactic.
Amazing. And you're in France at the moment, is that right, on a residency?
I am, yeah. I'm here for another month, I think. But I was just saying the weather's just like Glasgow, so don't know why I'm here, to be honest.
Be less of a shock when you get back.
True, yeah.
So one thing I wanted to talk about, I know we've spoken before about resilience and survival, which seem to be really key parts of your work and how you produce work. So that self-mythologizing element that you mentioned, I wondered if you could maybe talk about how myths and truth play a role within that, that self-mythologizing.
Yeah, it's something, I think that sense of myth and truth are both sort of this slippery scale, and I guess everything is in some sort of either personal imagined space or a collective imaginative space. So I sort of play with that with fantasy and fabulation to create a personal, cultural and visual language that is informed by autobiography, ancestral stories, ritual, and these diasporic journeys, as well as animism and multi-species, like interdependency in science fiction. And these help me kind of adopt this language as a tool for self-definition and imaginative resistance, and allows me to tell a new story, I guess, where I reconstruct my own identity and family past, but also create records for the future. And I sort of see this language that, this kind of constructed language of my own, allows me to resist mainstream Western tropes and conventions, by creating multi-dimensional, non-linear and layered narratives that I think I'm interested in exploring, like the other, that position of the other within these tangled realities, and kind of create an alternative story, one that allows me to think about society differently, or think about ways of surviving differently.
Yeah, I think that's something that I felt when kind of looking at or experiencing your work, is the sense of maybe playfulness and freedom and just space, I guess, that mythologizing, whether it's from a real source of kind of a family story or something that you've created, it just allows for that breathing space. But you mentioned multi-species connections earlier, which I think is something that comes through in maybe your research, and you're talking about your work in terms of its relationship to ecology and to land. I know that you've spoken before about resilient and invasive plant species, and this idea of looking at elements of the natural world and learnings from nature. So I wondered if you'd be able to talk about that role of ecology and land within your work as well.
Yeah, I think ecology and land play a big part in my work or my thinking. I guess in that sense of world building or thinking of alternative spaces, I'm interested in looking at more than human perspectives and kind of building critical alliances with ghosts and land of the past, and with the other. The other being, these other species or an otherness altogether. I'm informed by the science and science fiction writings of Anna Tsing, Donna Haraway, Octavia Butler, Ursula K. Le Guin, and how they all explore ecology in their own ways of thinking and worlding, and how they think about land and other lands as well, and ultimately used to reflect on our own societies and our own ways of survival and being, really. And I think with these literary influences and science fact, I interweave my own ancestral knowledge and ancient religions of my ancestors to further visualize a kind of transformed world that spans through these non-linear kind of timelines, where I kind of it allows me to contemplate identity and interdependency and future survival by looking at these different perspectives, by kind of listening to the land and listening to other species. In relation to invasive plant species, I recently read this book called Unearthed by Claire Batinon, where she interrogates the term invasive species. And I can read this quote, which really kind of rings true to me. So she says, the dehumanizing language of invasion, of pests, of vermin, has been used for centuries to demonize those arriving from elsewhere. Whether they are immigrants, refugees, or asylum seekers, that language has been used to strip people of their humanity for many years. And then she goes on to say, most of the plants that refused to behave, they were hostages stolen out of the earth by those who hunted the plants to bring back for profit, status, or study. And then she also says, many non-native plants are of benefit to shifting ecosystems. And in the context of the climate crisis, we may find that their presence is necessary and welcome. And I think that really rings true and connects with elements of diaspora that I find interesting. Diaspora being that position of the other, the non-native, the foreigner, all of these quoted. And I guess with those sort of positions, that I'm interested in the power of shape-shifting, of change, of resilience, of adaptation, in order to survive and thrive on new lands, on hostile lands, and that hostility being something both of an attitude and increasingly something of the physical environment. Change is coming, and what do we need to do? What kind of things do we need to imagine in order to prepare for it?
I think your kind of assessment and description of diaspora definitely rings true, and I think it's kind of quite clear in your own work in terms of that approach to diaspora and kind of personal history as well, that there's a duality of sorts in terms of the public elements of your work and also the private stories and connections to your own family history behind that. And that's kind of, I guess, part of a diasporic story in terms of having so many histories and so many lived stories that are often unseen in new lands, in potentially hostile lands. So I wonder if you could talk a bit about that balance, if it even is a balance, between this public and privateness, and do you arrive at a kind of ambiguity there, or how does that play out in terms of your production, and then also how your work appears in the world?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, public and privateness is like the scales on my in my practice, which I constantly think about and negotiate and play around with. Yeah, it's that sense of that these private stories, these things that I'm only getting to grips with and not really understanding for myself. So yeah, I don't feel ready to even, I guess, display it publicly or to go into depth with it, because yeah, it's something that I feel I need to hold on to, or my family need to hold on to. Yeah, I'm showing things in a public setting or expressing things publicly or kind of engaging with the public. So yeah, I kind of have this constant, there's this constant duality where I'm dealing with these private subjects, but I'm wanting to keep things for myself, or trying to learn about it, or I'm protecting something that is only held within my family or told within my family. So I think it's something I'm interested in, forming some sort of maybe personal language through what I do, in order to almost hold that privateness within a cloak of publicness. And so these two languages are at play, something that others can read and and work out for themselves and think about, and then there's also this other language which only me and my family can decipher. And I think this is, for me, an interesting way to play with the politics of refusal, and using ambiguity as a tool and something empowering, rather than trying to hide behind something or trying to, or being scared to say something. I'm still saying it, but saying it in a myriad of kind of languages that are kind of coded and symbolized through different materials. And yeah, it goes beyond a conventional language. And it's hard to describe with words. I really like that idea of describing something that can only be touched, or like how oral histories, are told just through speech and through listening. Like, these things are experienced, and that physical connection and the function of objects or spaces, and how those are languages in themselves, and those are understood in different ways with the body, and through different times. So yeah, I definitely think that ambiguity that runs through it is something that I like to play with, and something that I like to kind of create a language around.
Yeah, and you said that that codifying element, and that kind of that refusal element comes through in the type of production that you create as part of your artworks. Like, if something, for example, I'm thinking of your exhibition in Dundee. It was a very public exhibition, public setting, and that there was an element of that, of using that space for a kind of very intimate personal family gathering as well, and performance. So I guess it's quite interesting to hear about how a setting like that, at 10 a.m. on a Tuesday can be this one thing, and then it can also mean these totally different and totally unique and very tender things to say you and your family as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think maybe for people who don't know about the kind of quality of your work and how it appears and how it sits within space, I think, to me, there seems to be multiple processes, both in how you research and how you realize your works, and tactility and use of hands is a real focus of that. I wondered if you could outline some of those methods that you use.
Yeah. So I'd say the foundational kind of tool of my practice is drawing. It's where my mind naturally turns to, and it's kind of what I've always sort of approached from a young age. And I see drawing as a kind of, I guess it's something very personal to me. I don't really show many drawings, but it begins with that, with being able to detail personal way, like imagine things, and I use it as a way to, I guess, think about healing and nurturing and kind of sitting with the muddle of ideas and thoughts, and that in itself is a language that of how to describe these ideas in a visual way. And I kind of see drawing as this universal tool for potential as well. Like it references the past, and it documents the present, and this sense of like planning for the future as well, that sense of blueprints and passing these drawings on, and showing people ideas. And I like I like that sense of going beyond conventional language, of holding secrets and symbols and hidden thoughts as well, floating ideas that you can always kind of go back to or remember. With drawing, it kind of makes me think of these budding ideas that I take forward into, or it kind of goes alongside social research, or this auto-ethnographic approach, I guess, where I delve into conversation and I think about my relationship with my family, and spending time with my family and excavating those stories and recording them, and listening back for private use. And that's where I kind of, when in listening back, I go back to my personal space of drawing, and I build upon these stories and I abstract them and I embellish them into kind of what I call a personal mythology, that self-mythologizing. And then I guess there's this kind of play of going back and asking my family for permission as well, this permission of using these stories. And I guess that's gained different elements of like having their input, or talking about it with them, making decisions around the work, collaborating with my family. That is a form of permission, in that sense of sharing and involvement and working together. So they're kind of a part of it, and they see it as a kind of as the final work as well, and they're still kind of part of it, or they are within the spaces. These sort of grow into a haptic exploration of making and like using material, and very much that like sense of touch and making something with my hands. It's very much like trusting material and kind of trusting bodily and familial knowledge, and listening to the stories and kind of dreaming about them and drawing about them, crafting them, and kind of that all making this soup of that works towards like imaginative detail, that I think is integral in my work. They come out as symbols, or they come out as like particular embellishments, and that adds to the language and that kind of joyous tool of resistance. Because I think they all kind of add into this sort of conversation around migration, around kind of colonization and extraction, these things that my ancestors and others in the diaspora, they've gone through these journeys, and things have been lost and been violently taken away. But using imagination and like the detail and the labor of materials to fill in those gaps, and to create something new, and to create a new language so I understand it for myself. I feel is something that is important, and for others to kind of decipher for themselves as well. And so when it's all kind of put together as like DCA, this large scale installation, or something of a space or something materially existing, I can stand back from it and know it's all there, know that I'm there, and like my family, the past and future families know that they're all there. And there's a sort of communion of that, these energies, and the prospects of what that could become or how that can survive is exciting to me.
Okay, so in a way it's like that physical connection to the making process is kind of relating or responding to the kind of oftentimes ethereal, you know, status of ancestry or past lives when you are part of a diaspora, when you're kind of in a new space, or yeah, kind of new for new generationally anyway, if not new for you. But yeah, it sounds like that element is, like you say, kind of trying to recover or kind of reinstate that that concreteness, that permanence to it in a sense.
Yeah, but also kind of appreciating kind of the perforated holiness of it all as well, and you know, kind of putting your own sort of jewels in it, or filling it with other materials to make it more flexible or bendy or adaptive to what's to come. Yeah, and kind of, yeah, I think just making a space that breathes these kind of generational histories, and also to make a space that is on these kind of lands, is kind of making its existence clear, and also kind of being open to, yeah, what is to come and what can grow in there. The potential of it is, yeah, to tell kind of future stories. It is, yeah, is an exciting prospect.